I'm Lauren with Pack Hacker, and today we're going to be taking a detailed look at the Osprey Daylite Cinch, which I've been testing for the last 2 weeks. If you found this video helpful, be sure to give it a thumbs up so we can keep helping you find the right gear. Let's dive in. So the colorway that we have here is the Basanite Eclipse Gray colorway. And you can kind of see it here, but it looks a little bit more blue or purple, depending on the light. So that's something that I ran into a lot, was that it was kind of hard to tell what color it was. Not a huge deal in the scheme of things, but just something to keep in mind just because it does look a little bit darker on the website. So this main material here is a 150D recycled polyester, whereas this bottom is a 600D recycled polyester. And it's nice to have this base reinforced just because this is a backpack that you would use a lot for hiking or just daily carry. So with this lighter top portion that keeps it pretty light in terms of weight, having a reinforced base does add a little bit of peace of mind. So branding is fairly minimal as well, with just a little Osprey here, the actual name Daylite backpack. This is the Daylite Cinch, so there's a couple of different Daylite versions, but this one here is a cinch because of the cinch top. And then there's a little bit of branding on this back side here. So getting into this back harness, just because look at the straps, it's a little bit chaotic. So we have the sternum strap right here, and this actually has a whistle on it as well. So this little part here, you can see where it juts out. That's where you blow into. I won't do it for the sake of the video just because it is a little bit on the louder side, but that's what you want, right? That's for safety, and that's if you get lost on a hike and need assistance, or if there's an injury or anything like that, that whistle is great and it's right on hand and quick to access for you. The sternum strap is also on a slide, and it's a little bit tough to use. I would say this side more than the other side. So that's just an experience with this particular backpack. I'm sure that, sometimes you might get one that's a little bit tighter or a little bit looser. In this case, I'd rather have it a little bit tighter just so it's not sliding up and down the rail, but it was really difficult to adjust this side in particular when I had the actual backpack on my body. And then up here, we have a couple of elastic keepers here, which works with this hydration port, because when you have the tube out, you can put it through here and have that kept in place. Or if you wanted to, you could hang things from here, kind of up to you. They stay pretty low profile to the actual straps themselves, so I never found that they got in the way. It was just nice to have them there. And then looking at the bottom here, we have the waist strap. And this one here, there are no strap keepers on any of these straps, so everything just kind of hangs, right? Like when I have this backpack on, all of this is hanging down plus this strap. So the nice part about these is that they're removable. So how you do it is you just unclip the one side, and you can see on this clip, there's a little bit of a lip on this adjustment string, and there's a separate one down here. So these come off entirely. You just feed it underneath like that, and then feed it through the other side. It can get a little bit fussy because these can be longer than the actual buckle itself. And so that goes through, and then it's removed. So I'll put that off to the side just for the rest of the video. And then same for the other side. So these ones were nice. They're fairly thin, right? They're the same width, I guess I would say, or thickness as the other straps that exist, or the other straps here on the sternum strap. So everything here is very similar. It does add a little bit of support. This backpack is only 15-liter capacity, so I didn't find that I needed them all the time, but it was nice to have the option to lift a little bit off of me. So it does add a little bit of a sleeker look just because that's, 2 less strings that are hanging down on the actual pack itself. So talking about this back panel, this is their AirScape mesh back panel, and it's a little bit on the stiffer side. You can tell that there's not a ton of give, And so keeping that in mind, this was really great to have a little bit more structure with such a light backpack. And it did, you can't really tell here, but it does kind of curve to your body. And especially I think it helps mostly with these straps here because they are more, of a loop than anything. And so when I had it on, it was nice to kind of have that a little bit of added comfort. The one thing that I will say is that with this here, depending on where I have it sitting on my body, this can start to dig into my neck a little bit. So I tend to wear my backpacks a little bit higher just because my torso is a little shorter. So that's where I find the most comfort. And if I had it a little bit higher, then this would start to curve into the upper part of my back, which then this part would rub against the lower part of my neck. And if I wanted to, I could loosen it up and wear the backpack a little bit lower than I usually do. But then this here would kind of jut into the base of my spine, kind of where my pants hit, so it would rub a little bit. So that's something to keep in mind. Obviously, everybody's body shapes are different, but for me, with a little bit of a shorter torso, I did run into kind of trying to find that perfect fit for myself. The straps themselves are pretty comfortable though. They have this mesh here that is fairly see-through. It's not quite this airscape mesh. This has a little bit of a rougher feel to it, and this is softer. And this is really comfortable on my shoulders. I really enjoyed wearing this for that fact. It felt like a warm hug almost. It was just very snug on my body. So on the front side of the pack here, in terms of attachment points, we have some daisy chain right here. And this is just bar tacked to give you that looping here. And there's 4 on each side. And these are great if you want to attach things to the outside of your pack with a carabiner or something like that. Like if you have external hydration and you don't want to use the hydration area in the actual backpack itself, you have a lot of room to play with this, especially if you run out of that 15-liter capacity and you want to just attach a couple things to the outside. This pocket here is a zippered pocket with these fairly nice pull tabs. They're really stretchy. They have a nice hold to them, right? It kind of fits in the crook of your finger. And then on the inside of this pocket is essentially the entire length of this panel right here. So here's where I kept a lot of, daily items, like snacks, if I was on a longer walk or a hike, pair of sunglasses, wallet, phone. And then there is a key strap in here as well. So this is fairly bright, which is nice for added visibility. It is a little bit, I don't want to say the plastic is like flimsy, but it is pretty flexible. This part is thicker than this part, and it gave me a little bit of worry only when I was using it, just because I was worried that I would put too much pressure on it, but it's held up pretty good for me. There's a little bit of a little crook there, and you can slide it in nice and easy. So everything stayed really secure for that. The one thing that I did notice is that this pocket was a little bit hard to access when I had the backpack on. So if I had it on and I swung it to one side, this zipper fell, I believe it was on this side over here, which was further, and then I was trying to find the zipper and I'd open it, and that was fine, but it is a little bit high, and I had some trouble getting to items really quickly within that pocket. It wasn't a huge issue. The backpack itself was pretty easy to take off if I really needed to get to something way down here, but I did notice the lack of quick grabability with that. So putting this stuff back in here, it fits pretty nicely in there. Doesn't really affect the shape of it too much. I mean, you can see that there are items in there. If you look there, there's my phone. You can kind of see it on the outside, but overall it keeps its shape pretty well. So moving on into the inside of the pack here, this cinch function is pretty cool. So it has the loop here that keeps it secured to this little hook back here, and then this acts as your pull tab once you open it. So there is a loop back here as well. So what you do is you have it hooked up and then unhook it, pull it, and it's open. So then you have full access to this main compartment here, and then say you want to, you know, cinch it right back up. There is on the front here, this pull tab, and that's what hangs down on the front. You pull that, oh yeah, pull it that way, grab onto this, and then you can cinch it back. So the way that this is looped for this pack for me, it is a little bit fussy to get into that little hook there. So with the way it's flipped out here, it's easier, but it would sometimes flip this way and I'd have a little bit more trouble hooking it on. That's an easy fix, but just something I noticed if I was getting in and out of this pocket often, I would run into the problem where it could get a little bit clunky to open and close. And then another thing that I ran into with this opening here is with this long string hanging in the front here, I did catch a couple times on some things. So often when I am leaving a place and I'm locking the door and there's two doors, I'll like hold the screen door on my back while I lock the main door with whatever key is in here. And then I would go to leave and this had hooked itself around a doorknob and I'd get caught. So something to keep in mind with this hanging down, if you're hiking in some really tight areas, that might be something that you run into. But it didn't become an issue too often, but something that I did notice is once or twice I did get caught. So back to this main compartment here. It is just a big open tub. So to kind of give you an idea of how it packs out, I've got a couple different packing cubes in here. I have a fairly large one and then two smaller ones. So with that larger one, that kind of shows you how it is when it's fully packed out. And without that larger one, it does lay relatively flat. So to kind of give you a different visual here, it's still pretty rounded without it, but it's just not quite as round on the front. But you do have a lot of room to play with, depending on what your load ends up being. And then on the inside here, I have these two other packing cubes. And then the rest is open. So for the most part, what I ended up carrying in here was just kind of my daily essentials. I ended up putting my laptop in here and then things that went along with my laptop, like a tech pouch or something like that. And then if I went on a hike or anything, I could put like a packable jacket in there, or sometimes I would move some of the things that are in this quick access pocket and put those in the main compartment. It just kind of varied depending on what I needed, but there was a lot of room to play around with. And then with this hydration pack, I've just got a 2-liter one in here. This here fits in this back cinch pocket. So for aesthetics, I had that, the tube in there, but I'll pull that out and kind of show you how that loops through. But this is just a cinch pocket and it just sits on this back panel here. This back panel has a little bit of padding to it, which then translates to this airscape mesh as well. So we've got this here, which is for, you know, organizing this tube, keeping it in place, or if you wanted to hang things from here, that works as well. It's just a little clip, making sure that everything stays in place instead of falling down, just keeps it organized. And then to feed it to the outside, there's this like lip here that then translates to a hole. So on the outside, you can't even really see it. This hydration H2O tab kind of gives you an idea of where it would be. But when you don't have a hydration port coming through, it does stay fairly low profile there. So I'll feed this through. And then you have access to that on the outside. So if you wanted to put that through here, you know, it just kind of varies what kind you have. You know, that's quick access for you, keeps it fairly organized, or if you have one that has a clip, you can clip it as well. So up to you kind of how you want to keep that organized, or you can opt out of the hydration pack entirely. So if you want to pull this back through, you can unclip it. and then pull this hydration pack out. So I'm gonna put that over there. And then what I ended up doing a lot of the time, the pull tab there for a little bit easier packing. What I ended up doing a lot of the time was putting my laptop in here. So this is a 13-inch MacBook, and it fits in there pretty snug. So there's no false bottom or anything. This is designed specifically for a hydration pack. I've just kind of doubled up the function here. So there's no padding or extra protection, but in terms of security, it's pretty snug in there. So you can see on either side, there's not a ton of extra space, which is nice. It didn't feel like the laptop was going to fly out at any point. And then it did add a little bit of rigidity to the back as well, which is nice, depending on if you feel like this is a little bit too flexible. And then you still have all that extra space to pack things on the inside. So I would add something like a water bottle, since I didn't have the hydration pack. And this was nice because this one here is I believe a 21 ounce, and it fits in there pretty nicely. And then I would have this extra room for whatever else I needed. So it does make it a little bit tough just if you don't have that hydration, because you do need to stick it on the inside unless you have a packable one that you can hook either to this front or any of the daisy chain on the other side. So kind of up to you depending on how you pack things out. But that's what I found worked the best for me. So when it's loose, a little bit floppy. When it's packed out, not quite as much. And then I would say for the most part, I needed to open it this way every time, because it doesn't really open if you try and force it open, which is good, right? Because then the bag is functioning like it's supposed to. It won't open unless you want it to. But sometimes I found myself like only pulling it that far and then wanting to get something like my laptop out, which is a little bit bigger. And then the cinch is just a little bit on the tighter side. So something to keep in mind if you find yourself wanting really quick grabs, that the nature of a cinch does just make it a little bit harder to get into a pack when you need it. So overall, it was super comfortable to wear. I really enjoyed the comfort of it. The biggest thing was for me, the fact that this sort of dug into my neck. But again, that's something where depending on your torso size, it could be more or less of an issue. This wideness, or this wider hole here, also acts as a luggage pass-through. So if you find yourself wanting to use this as a day pack while you travel, that's really great as well. It is a fairly low profile design. It doesn't really fold, right? It's not super packable, but it does lay pretty flat. So you could either bring it with you as is, or you can, stick it in your bag, lay it flat, pack on top of or around it. So there you have it, the Osprey Daylite Cinch. Thanks for keeping it here at Pack Hacker, your guide to smarter travel, and we'll see you in the next one.